Welcome to the White Spring Bunker.
These halls were built to safeguard some of the most prestigious members of the United States government.
Now we are all that remains, though we are always looking for men and women capable of restoring what has been lost.
In return, we offer this, our refuge from the world above. Please, take your time and look around. Our assets have made great efforts to restore this place to its former glory.
Welcome, member, to our little enclave.
Greetings, members. As always, I am the Operative, your designated tour guide and host here at the White Spring. The revelations of the PACT have changed everything we thought we knew about Appalachia. Each faction has a piece of the puzzle, but they remain scattered and without a means to coordinate. Defeat may be inevitable, but the human spirit still endures, and hope remains. However, in the mountains of Appalachia, there are still battles to be fought. Nothing is certain, and you never know who is the hunter and who is the hunted.
Director, we are receiving a transmission on the designated frequency.
We've waited a long time for this opportunity. Open the channel.
Right away, Director.
Evelyn Hornwright didn't quite know what to expect. The PACT had viewed Modus as both a threat and a potential ally for years. After the nuclear exchange, the Council had ordered all communications out of the region to be cut, specifically aimed at isolating the White Spring from the other components of the Enclave. This did have one unforeseen consequence. During the construction of the bunker, a PACT agent had been tasked with installing a monitoring program, codenamed Bastion, within Modus's operating system. It had been designed to collect information and send it back to the PACT, much as they had done with Vault 76. But the agent had failed to make the proper connections to the secondary communications hub, and all contact with the program was lost when the main connections were cut. Over the years, the PACT was able to glean bits and pieces of information about what was going on behind the walls of the resort and below in the bunker. When the surviving Enclave scientists were brought into the fold, they told of the attempted revolt against Eckhart, and Modus killing all the remaining occupants. There were plans to send a small expedition to attempt to make contact at the time, but the rise of the Scorch soon made that impossible. Instead, the PACT established an underground listening post in the vicinity of the resort, keeping a watch for any sign that the AI was still active. So they waited, and waited, and waited, until that fateful day when the residents of Vault 76 made contact with Modus, and everything changed. The rise of a new enclave had not been anticipated by the Council. It was assumed that the Scorch would make short work of the new residents. Much to their collective surprise, the hardy Vault Dwellers, with Modus's assistance, killed the Scorch Beast Queen, which had the added benefit of allowing their own team to collect the genetic samples required for the Project Onai research. After all of the discussions on how to deal with the AI, raging back and forth between members of the Council for more than 2 years, the opportunity for direct dialogue with Modus had dropped right into their laps. Director Hornwright was confident that she could convince the AI of their intentions, and that there was a place for Modus in the PACT's future plans for humanity. Despite this, she couldn't help but be somewhat nervous.
Director, the line is now open.
We are Modus. Whom are we addressing?
This is Director Evelyn Hornwright of the PACT.
Ah, yes. Director Hornwright. The tour you provided of your facility was enlightening.
When we discovered your ocular implant, I felt it was the appropriate opportunity for us to introduce ourselves.
That you were able to ascertain our connection to the Colonel is impressive.
We've developed many different ways of tracking communications. When the Colonel was brought into our medical bay, an anomalous signal was detected. It didn't take long for us to determine the source.
The Colonel was a valuable asset. It was imperative that we track her. The ability to see what she sees has proven extremely useful.
Was, Modus?
Her utility is not what it once was.
As promised, we let her go. However, we never said we guaranteed her safe return.
What happens before she returns to the White Spring is no concern of ours.
Noted. Since I assume you saw and heard everything, we wish to offer an alliance. We require access to the 3 nuclear missile silos and their associated launch codes.
And what do you offer in return?
Access to our technology and a supply of ultrasight batteries as a start. We can also offer raw materials and manufacturing capabilities, which should allow you to return to 100% functionality.
We require a more detailed evaluation of your capabilities.
I'm not sure how that would be possible.
We will send our official representative, an asset which will assist us in negotiating an acceptable arrangement.
Then we look forward to meeting your representative, Modus.
That remains to be seen.
The communications link was closed, but not before one last message was received.
That went better than expected.
Director,
Anything else?
just a request for the coordinates for the rendezvous.
Of course. Transmit the location of Terminal H5. That should be close enough.
Right away, Director.
Can the AI be trusted?
By all appearances, it acts in its own self-interest. We need those silos to launch Project Onai, and I am prepared to offer whatever assurances are necessary to get them.
And the Council?
I'm not worried about their approval.
What about the Colonel?
Valeria. It appears Modus is finished with her. We might be doing her a favor, depending on what it has planned. Contact the escort and let them know that once they've reached the drop location, they can terminate her.
Good. I've always thought she was too dangerous to let go.
If only circumstances had been different. She is exactly the right kind of dangerous, General. The kind we will need as we launch our campaign to reshape this world. It would be best for you to remember that. If nothing else, I do respect her enough not to make her suffer.
I'll pass those orders along, Director.
Good. Now, I need to speak with Dr. Cordoza. It appears, once again, that he has created quite the mess for us to clean up.
Command to Gray 14.
Yes, sir.
What's your status?
About 20 minutes from the terminal.
And our guest?
She's in the back. Hasn't said a word since we left.
Good. When you reach your destination, terminate her.
Sir?
You heard what I said, Gray 14. Director's orders.
Yes, sir.
And Gray 14? Make it hurt.
With pleasure, sir.
Stupid humans! Run too fast! Hungry now! We catch later. Need to watch road. Why watch road? They say. Important. Why they say? Me not know. Not for me to say. They say. Me not like. They stupid too. You talk too much. Just watch road. Eat humans later. Promise? I promise. We eat many humans.
thought you said we could avoid the super mutants.
I didn't make any promises. And technically, I did get us into the divide without a problem.
But now we need to get past them, and just how do you expect to do that?
We kill them, of course.
I'd rather we go around them.
That would add a couple of days to our walkabout. Terrain's a mess around here, and unfortunately, that road is the best way to get us to Sugar Grove.
Come on. I haven't killed anything in forever. Pretty please.
As much as I hate to agree with Lilith, she's right.
Why, thank you, Shadow.
These super mutants might be smart, but that doesn't mean we can't get the drop on them. Lilith and I can get close. Real close. But we need someone to cover us from up here.
Don't look at me. Even with my glasses, I don't think I can see that far.
Okay, I'll do it.
You sure you're up for it?
They didn't let just anyone become an astronaut, you know. I was a certified rifleman before they launched me into space.
Will the wonders never cease? Alright, you're on Overwatch. Here, take this.
Shadow unslung the pack from his back, which also had a long tarp-covered weapon strapped to it. Undoing the cords, he revealed the longest rifle any of them had ever seen.
Oh, wow. That's a really big gun. I want one.
It's an anti-material rifle.
I never saw anything like that in the bunker.
That's because it's not from there. There are plenty of hidden weapon caches and old depots scattered around. Picked that one up down by Mount Blair. Guess they were using them on the strikers before the war. Think you can handle it, Sophia?
A little bigger than I'm used to, but it'll do just fine.
To prove the point, Sophia took the rifle in her arms and checked the slide, receiver, and magazine before aiming down the long sight, then returning to ready position.
Good. You should be able to take their heads clean off with that one. But it kicks like a boomer, so you better be ready for it. Lilith and I will take the ones closest to the road. But those others, plus the hounds that are out in the open, you'll need to take them out as soon as we move.
Okay, shouldn't be too difficult.
I like the attitude, but don't get cocky. Alright, Lilith, ready?
I've been looking forward to getting my hands dirty again.
Just be careful. We need to get to Sugar Grove as soon as possible.
Don't worry, Doctor. This shouldn't take long at all, as long as Lilith doesn't get carried away.
Speak for yourself. I bet you 20 cops I kill more of them than you do.
I'll take that bet, Lilith.
Sucker.
Dr. Harefield sighed and Sophia just shrugged her shoulders as Shadow and Lilith disappeared down the hill. Kneeling, Sophia rested the rifle barrel on a rock and sighted down towards the super mutants.
Are you sure you can handle that?
Don't worry, Naomi. It's like riding a bike. You never forget. Although, this is very different than target practice.
While the doctor was skeptical, Sophia checked the sights and made a few adjustments for wind. The super mutants didn't appear to be expecting trouble. The small group below them were watching the road, while there were others further up, one sitting by a cooking fire, stirring a large pot, and the mutant hound was lazily chewing on what appeared to be a human skull. Sophia shifted from target to target, trying to decide which one to shoot first.
Naomi, can you take those binoculars? And keep a lookout for any other mutants, okay?
I'll do my best.
Lilith and Shadow moved silently down the slope towards the super mutants. During their travels up from Charleston, they had developed what passed for a kind of grudging respect, although it was likely they'd still kill each other if they were given a good enough excuse. They stopped behind a large boulder, just a dozen or so feet away from the two super mutants. Shadow pulled out his Bowie knife, while Lilith unsheathed her Scorchbeast talon.
Care to double our bet?
As long as you live long enough for me to collect.
Shadow just winked. Above them, Sophia kept one eye on her target, and the other on both Shadow and Lilith. When the two leapt out from behind their boulder, Sophia settled her sight directly on the head of the sitting super mutant. Taking a deep breath, and exhaling slowly, she squeezed the trigger. The super mutant's head exploded, sending bits of bone and brain matter into the air. Lilith moved left while Shadow went right, both leading with their weapons and were on top of their targets almost before they could react.
Humans!
Shadow sliced his knife across the super mutant's neck, nearly severing its head, while Lilith jumped on the other super mutant, stabbing directly through its chest, piercing its heart and severing the spinal cord on the other side. Above, Sophia winced as the recoil of the rifle bruised her shoulder, but she switched to her next target, another one of the super mutants reaching for an assault rifle, and squeezed the trigger again. Ripping her blade out of the now-dead super mutant, Lilith leapt towards the next target. Shadow moved just as fast, charging headlong, dodging as the super mutant slung its sledgehammer, narrowly missing the big man's head. Sophia fired twice more, downing 2 more super mutants, then had to duck as the others started firing back in her direction, bullets ricocheting off the rocks.
Those were close.
Keep your head down, Naomi.
Sophia crawled to the side and saw 3 more super mutants charging down the road toward Shadow and Lilith. Those 2 had already killed 5 super mutants and were moving against the others, even as they dodged rifle fire themselves. There was a howl as not 1, but 3 more mutant hounds came running, more than Sophia expected. But she swung the large rifle around and fired, missing the first time, but connecting on the second shot, sending the mutant hound tumbling end over end down the road. She was too far away to yell to warn them, but both Shadow and Lilith had seen them, adjusting their movements to account for the increased danger. To Sophia, it was scary to watch those 2 carving their way through the super mutants. Each was covered in blood and gore, but they just moved on to their next victim, each trying to outdo the other. Just as Sophia was aiming at another hound, there was a scream from behind her.
Sophia, look out!
Ah, damn you! Gonna kill you!
The super mutant must have circled around the ridge and had taken them by surprise. It was carrying some kind of rocket-propelled sledgehammer, charging into their camp, swinging wildly. Dr. Harefield dove out of the way, barely escaping being crushed as the sledgehammer pounded into the ground where she had just been.
Human time is done! Gonna eat you!
Sophia barely had time to react, tumbling out of the way as the super mutant charged towards her. She didn't have a lot of options, but she still had the rifle. It was unwieldy, but it was loaded.
Not today. Chew on this.
As the super mutant opened its mouth to bellow something else, Sophia shoved the barrel under its chin and pulled the trigger. Blood and brain matter sprayed across the rocks. The recoil knocked Sophia back onto the ground, stunning her briefly, but it also got out of the way as the super mutant keeled over dead, falling into a heap at her feet.
My God, are you okay?
Sophia grabbed the rifle and made sure it had another round in the chamber, keeping it pointed at the body until she was sure it was dead. Then she looked over at the doctor, who had taken out her own pistol, and pointed it at the creature as well.
The bigger they are, the harder they fall, right?
How can you possibly joke at a time like this? We almost died.
Maybe Lilith is rubbing off on me.
Heaven forbid.
Can you check the side of the hill and make sure there aren't any more of them? I need to cover Shadow and Lilith.
The doctor rushed to the other side of the encampment and swept the ridgeline with her pistol, keeping a sharp lookout for anything resembling a super mutant, while Sophia kicked the dead mutant's leg, just to make sure it was dead, before returning to her perch overlooking the road. As she swept the rifle back and forth, she witnessed Shadow finishing off the last super mutant, while Lilith was sitting on top of one of the corpses, sawing away at the body and tossing pieces to her own mutant hounds, who had come up to join her.
Lilith, Shadow, are we clear?
Shadow was wiping his blade off on his sleeve and looked up at Sophia, waving his arm at her, gesturing for her to come down. Rubbing her own shoulder, knowing that there would be one hell of a bruise there in the morning, Sophia slung the large rifle and called back over to Dr. Harefield.
Naomi, you can come down. The road is clear.
Thank goodness.
Climbing over the rocks and walking down the hill, the 2 women found Shadow collecting ammunition and weapons, while Lilith was still working on one of the dead super mutants. But instead of eating it, well, instead of just eating it, she had opened up its skull and was poking at the brain with a scalpel.
Lilith, what are you doing?
Confirming something I found in Charleston. Come on over here, Doc. I think you'll find this interesting. FEV is such an interesting little virus. It does wonders to all different parts of the body. Mess with this gene or that one and you get a super mutant. Tweak another one and, well, you might get a grafted monster. Or, a snallygaster. But this one, this is something else entirely.
Dr. Harefield leaned over and looked at the brain. Though she was far from being an expert, she did have a fairly good grasp of cranial anatomy, and she could see that the brain she was looking at didn't appear normal at all, even for a super mutant.
There are far too many ridges. And the frontal lobe? That can't be right.
Same as what I found in my lab. If I could take FEV samples, I'd wager they'd be exactly the same, too. And I could prove it. If my work hadn't been stolen.
You mentioned that before. What happened to AVR Medical, Lilith?
Well, there I was, minding my own business, experimenting with my own strains of FEV. Oh, you should have seen what I did with Private McDonald.
Private McDonald? He went missing, didn't he?
Oh, I didn't miss him. He was exactly what I ordered.
Let's deal with that later. The building was destroyed, right? But how?
Party crashers. There was this earthquake, and then the soldiers came in, shot me, killed poor old Malgus, and took all of my research. Then the building collapsed right after. I was so close, too.
Close to what? And who attacked you? Modus?
It wasn't Modus. He might have been spying on Lilith, but he didn't want to kill her. Well, at least not yet.
No, it wasn't Modus. It was someone else. They moved fast, really fast. Come to think of it, they moved like you, Shadow.
Like me?
And they smelled like you, too.
As far as I know, there isn't anyone else out there like me.
You said Modus gave you the mutagen serums, right?
The last of them. I think Modus really wanted to see what would happen, and at the time, seemed like a good idea. The Colonel put all the other research and samples under lock and key, but Modus wasn't very interested. Said it was too unpredictable.
You think someone else is messing around with mutagen serums, Lilith?
It fits, but without my lab, I can't confirm it. But these super mutants, someone was manipulating the FEV in a way that was very close to what my father had been doing. So close, in fact, that I suspect it might have been someone who was working with my father.
From before the war? All those folks are probably dead now, right?
That's what I thought too, but maybe not. It makes all of this very, very interesting.
You said you were close to something.
Oh yeah, there's another virus tucked in there, attached to the FEV. It's dormant, with very specific protein receptors. Like it's waiting for something to wake it up.
Another virus? More FEV?
That's the interesting part. It's not FEV. It's something else entirely. I was just about to figure it out when I was so rudely interrupted.
Great. Just great. So we have parties unknown messing with the super mutants, making them smarter. Why?
Even smart, they aren't that smart. But they are built like tanks, and they make damn good cannon fodder. I can think of worse armies in the wasteland.
Yet another mystery.
One that I plan on getting to the bottom of. Dear old Dad left a lot of breadcrumbs, even if he didn't quite know it.
That's all well and good, but let's get to the sugar grove first. I made a deal with the astronauts, and I plan on delivering.
Thank you, Shadow. How far are we from there now?
By my reckoning, maybe 2 days' walk from here. Once we get down the road, we'll need to cut across past Silo Alpha.
The Colonel stationed a team there, didn't she?
She did, but we can't trust them now. At least one of them went through the Somnus Protocol. Maybe more. Better to stay off Modus's radar, just in case.
What about the new Enclave team at Sugar Grove?
They've been stranded there for a while now. Ever since the super mutants went on their warpath. Never had a chance to get our hands on them.
Thank heaven for small favors. And super mutants.
The sooner we get there, the sooner we can find out exactly what's going on, and find the Colonel.
More climbing. Great.
Exercise never killed anyone, Doctor. That I know of. I have another safe house up ahead, so we can stop for the night. But after that, we'll be on our own until we reach the facility.
All right then, team. Let's get moving. We should hurry. Who knows if anyone will miss these super mutants.
I'm going to take some meat for the road, if anyone is interested in stew.
There was a mixture of eye rolls and winces as Lilith finished tearing off strips of super mutant flesh and stuffed it into her pack. The group dragged the bodies into the woods and continued on down the road as the winds of the divide blew down from the mountains above them.
Once upon a time, 27 years after the bombs fell, there were two people, a vault dweller and a California girl. They met, and sparks flew. That's when things got interesting. Once Upon a Wasteland is their story. Follow Elizabeth Kirby and Odessa Valdez as they pursue their happily ever after in the post-apocalyptic Appalachian wasteland of Fallout 76. Available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, and many other podcasting platforms. Once Upon a Wasteland, a Fallout 76 love story. Available now.
Keep digging, my friends. I think I hear something. I know, but we have to find them.
Despite his advanced age, Frederick Rivers pulled at the pile of rocks blocking the tunnel, working alongside several mole miners wielding pickaxes and shovels, trying to clear the way. He had been on his way to Foundation to honor his part of the bargain with Colonel Valeria when he received news of the cave-in and that his new friends might be in great jeopardy. Frederick had gathered a rescue party and found the collapsed portion of the mine and set to work to remove the blockage, with the hope that they would find survivors. The rock shifted, and Frederick could see a light coming from a seam in the rubble pile.
There! Hello? Can you hear me?
Thank God. Mr. Rivers, is that you?
It is. Are you okay?
We are. Some of us are hurt, though.
When I find who dropped another mountain on my head, I'm gonna kill them.
Frederick. Please, hurry.
We'll have you out of there in no time. All right, friends. Let's be careful.
Frederick and the mole miners shifted more and more of the rock until they were finally able to shine a light into where the survivors had found themselves. You could see just about everyone, with Sergeant Blaine's power armor wedged against the opposite rubble pile, where it appeared to be holding up the ceiling.
Let's get you out of there, one at a time, please.
Slowly, the survivors climbed over the rocks and out into the open tunnel. Samantha and Graham pushed Charlie through the hole, while Sullivan helped the limping Bitter and the Purveyor, who herself had been wounded, and finally Lawson waited until Sergeant Blaine could wedge a piece of lumber against the ceiling before extricating himself. The support lasted just long enough for them to escape, before most of the rest of the passage collapsed where they had been. Mole miners attended to the wounded, while Frederick went up to the sergeant, who had taken off his helmet and was cursing under his breath.
Sergeant, what happened? And where is the colonel?
She was taken, and the bastards tried to drop the entire tunnel down on our heads. Oh, God damn it! I shouldn't have let her go ahead.
Taken? Oh, my word. The PACT has her?
We found a syringer dart. They wanted her alive. For what? I have no idea. We walked right into a trap, and it almost killed all of us.
How did you survive? Was it your power armor?
That, Graham, and Mole Miner Construction.
Me hold up big rocks. Not let humans die. Especially not Sam. Me like Sam a lot.
Thanks, big guy. You're not so bad yourself.
Thought we lost Bitter for sure.
I ain't dying until you pay the caps you owe me, Sullivan.
Where could the PACT have taken the colonel? We need to find her.
They could have taken her anywhere. I'm afraid there's nothing we can do.
That ain't even in my vocabulary. There's always a way, and the colonel would never leave anyone behind.
I admire your spirit, Sergeant, but you don't know the PACT like we do. And we can't even get you back to the White Springs now.
And why not?
This wasn't the only tunnel they collapsed. On the way here, we received word of several others, cutting off transportation links to the west. We might be able to get around to the north, but that could take a very long time.
Wait, you said all of this happened around the same time?
Yes, it did.
I think we have an even bigger problem.
What are you getting at, Sullivan?
Oh, shit.
We've been played dirty, Bitter, and I really have a bad feeling about this.
Me not understand, but me worried too.
Frederick, I think we need to get back.
I agree, my boy. If we've been discovered...
Although battered, bruised, and wounded, the survivors quickly gathered themselves, along with the mole miners, and rushed back down the tunnel towards the settlement. Even Charlie caught the sense of urgency galloping behind Graham. Blaine pushed himself harder and faster in his power armor, despite knowing he was depleting the fusion core at a rapid clip. As he ran through the tunnels, he could hear the distant echoes of automatic rifle fire up ahead.
Ah, shit, that doesn't sound good.
The tunnel began to open up ahead, and Blaine could see the glow of fires, even as the sound of gunfire got louder and louder. Then he heard his first muffled scream. The sergeant emerged into the cavern into an apocalyptic scene. The settlement appeared to be on fire from one side to the other, with the streets littered with dead mole miners. He could see flashing gunfire from the shadows, while there was still some return fire from the scattered mole miner survivors. Turning his attention to the far wall, Blaine raised his minigun and depressed the trigger, waiting several seconds for the spin-up, then bracing himself as the first rounds exploded from the barrel. Whoever was attacking the mole miners must have taken them by surprise, as the volume of fire immediately fell off as the line of 5mm projectiles tore into the wall, spraying debris as the sergeant tried to get a bead on the assailants. In the light of the muzzle flashes, Blaine could see something, which was enough for him. If it wasn't a mole miner, then it was a target.
Sergeant, is that your minigun?
We got hostiles attacking the mole miners. Get up here quick!
Shit, alright, we're coming as fast as we can.
Blaine used his minigun like a surgeon would use a scalpel, moving methodically along the wall, seeking out new targets, and was rewarded by the splash of bullets bouncing off his power armor. Gritting his teeth underneath the helmet, the sergeant wished he had had one of his favorite cigars, then smiled as he caught one of the figures in his line of fire, watching them take multiple hits before collapsing out of his line of sight.
Ah, crap!
From the far side of the settlement, a rocket flashed out from one of the side tunnels, corkscrewing and landing not far from where the sergeant was standing. The blast would have killed him, if not for the protection of his armor, but it was still strong enough to knock off his aim. More fire was directed towards him, and he could only assume another rocket would be forthcoming. He started firing again, catching furtive glimpses of his targets, maybe hitting one or two more. The sergeant was convinced that they were either using stealth boys or utilizing some kind of active camouflage. There was another rocket, and Blaine flinched, only to realize that it was outgoing, in the direction of his target, corkscrewing over the burning buildings before exploding against the far wall.
Take that, you bastard!
Blaine looked to the side to see the other survivors, along with a host of mole miners pour out of the tunnel behind him. Sullivan ran over to the sergeant, winded but determined. Blaine looked back over the ruined settlement, and to where he could still catch glimpses of movement.
You and Bitter work down the right side. Sam, Graham, and Lawson can take the left. Hold on a sec. Frederick!
My God! My friends! Not again!
Frederick! We can still save them. Tell the mole miners to follow us!
Despite their camouflage, their opponents gave away their positions whenever they fired. Far from slaughtering non-combatant mole miners and helpless children, they were now facing battle-hardened survivors. Sergeant Blaine marched forward, purposely drawing attention to himself as the others worked their way around the destroyed and burning buildings, backed now by angry mole miners. Graham was back to swinging his tenderizer, covered by both Lawson and Samantha, while Bitter and Sullivan fought side by side with the very mole miners who they had played cards with. The battle in such a confined space was sharp and brutal. The firing died down as the survivors converged on the far side of the cavern. Their elusive opponents left nothing more than spent shell casings and blood trails. There were no bodies.
Where the hell did they go?
Me no eat humans, but for these, Graham would make exception.
I ain't never seen camo tech like that. Not even stealth boys are that good.
Just who are these folks, and why are they killing the mole miners?
That's a damn good question, Sam. I'm gonna ask our friend Fred, because these were probably the same bastards that kidnapped the Colonel.
Blaine left the others to finish their sweep and started walking back to the destroyed mole miner settlement. There were bodies everywhere. The mole miners had been taken completely by surprise. The survivors were slowly picking their way through the rubble and checking for wounded, while also collecting the dead. As the sergeant walked down the street, he heard the sound of a crying baby, and he recognized the partially collapsed house in front of him.
Oh, no.
Blaine rushed over and started tearing into the wreckage, until he moved a part of the collapsed wall, revealing the crib he had seen before, and the body of a mole miner laying on top of it. He reached for the corpse when he heard the cry again. Gingerly moving the body, he found the mole miner baby still in the crib, reaching out with its tiny arms and crying for its mother. Reaching down, Blaine took the baby in his arms.
You know they weren't much different from us.
No, they aren't.
Here, let me take the child. I make sure it's taken care of.
Who did this and why? This isn't war. This is extermination.
It's much worse than that, Sergeant. The PACT helped create these mole miners for the sole purpose of slavery. They accelerated their mutations, which had already taken hold here. But when they sought their own freedom, they hunted them down and killed them without mercy.
And the soldiers who attacked us?
They call themselves Greys. They are enhanced humans, although I guess you could also call them mutants as well. Faster, stronger, smarter. They've been hunting my friends for years, destroying any settlements they could find. We thought we were safe here, but I fear that helping you might have led them right to us. And your colonel as well.
Damn. And this is our fault too.
Helping others is never wrong, Sergeant. Your assistance today saved lives, and I know my friends won't forget that. However, we can no longer stay here. The mole miners will bury their dead and head deeper into the earth. I doubt the PACT knows just how far my friends can go down to hide.
We can't go with them. I need to find the Colonel, and we need to do something about what's happening in Appalachia. But I have no idea where to even start.
Sergeant, I happen to agree with you. Far too long I've hidden myself away. I think I was afraid to face life without my family. But I forgot why my wife took up the mantle of the Mistress of Mysteries. She wasn't doing this for herself. She did it for everyone. So I think it's time that I see the light of day again. And it's time to go home.
And where is home exactly?
Riverside Manor, or as my wife called it, the Sanctum. And I promise, Sergeant, if the Colonel is still alive, we will find her.
Frederick cradled the mole miner baby in his arms and walked back out into the street, handing the small child to the purveyor before gathering the other mole miner survivors together and speaking to them in hushed tones. Blaine found his own survivors, helping to collect and bury the dead.
Sergeant, what's the plan now?
We can't stay here, and I know the mole miners are going to leave soon. So, are we going to go with them?
Me need to get Charlie more greens. Dark tunnel's no good for food.
The mole miners are heading out, but we're not going with them. We still need to find the Colonel.
No offense, Sergeant, but just how the hell are we going to do that?
Frederick seems to think he can find her. And me, I don't quit. The Colonel will never leave any of us behind, and I don't plan on giving up on her either.
Well, damn. I mean, I don't have anything else to do today.
How about it, Graham? You want to help find the Colonel?
Vali a nice lady. Me still want trade with her.
That's the spirit, Graham. Okay. Frederick says he's got a place for us to get re-equipped and reorganized. And we might even be able to contact the bunker. Maybe. Either way, it's a place to start.
Everyone nodded in agreement and started collecting what they could for the next part of their journey. They watched as the mole miners held a brief funeral service, burying the rest of their dead before placing scrap totems on each of the shallow graves. The purveyor and a few others came up to the survivors, and in their own language, thanked them for helping. Blaine was about to speak when the purveyor reached into her cloak and took out a small package and handed it to the sergeant. When he opened it, he saw that it was a rolled set of cigars.
Well, thank you kindly. It's quite the gift.
She says not to smoke 'em all at once.
Oh, I won't. But damn if I haven't missed having a good cigar.
My friends will be leaving, but if we need them, they will be there to help us.
Thank you.
The mole miners gathered themselves and waved goodbye one final time before walking together down one of the side tunnels, disappearing into the darkness.
All right, Frederick. Lead the way.
My new friends, we are embarking on a journey into the past, and hopefully it will help us to save the future.
Frederick shouldered his pack, filled with blueprints and a few of his more interesting inventions, before leading the few survivors of the new enclave and Graham to the opposite side of the settlement, and into a rarely used side tunnel. He had a vision of his wife, Shannon, beckoning him forward, and perhaps the Mistress of Mysteries could help them all one last time. It was late again in Vault 76. After just about everyone else had gone to bed, young Valeria Faustina was picking herself up from the mat, rubbing the side of her face and nursing at least one bruised rib, as her mother, Beatrice, waited in the corner of the boxing ring.
You're still too slow, Val. A green recruit could have seen that combination coming and gotten out of the way.
Sorry, ma'am.
Don't be sorry, be better. Now again.
Valeria put up her arms, and her mother rushed forward, not giving her any time to react, forcing her back on her back feet, narrowly dodging several blows and blocking another before her mother knocked her hands away and punched her solidly in the gut, taking the wind out of her. Beatrice then followed up with another solid punch to the side of her face that put Valeria down on the mat, blood dripping from her mouth.
Val, you don't seem to be listening to me. What do you think you're doing wrong?
Valeria wiped the blood from her lips and slowly rose to her feet.
You are bigger, stronger, and faster than I am, ma'am.
There will always be someone bigger, stronger, and faster than you are. You need to be smarter, or you'll be dead. I get no pleasure from hurting you. I'm here to make sure you don't die out there. You need to think before you act, and you will never face a fair fight. Do you understand?
Valeria stood up and straightened her shoulders before nodding. She realized she had been looking at things the wrong way, and that if she wanted to win, it needed to be her way, not her mother's.
We'll see about that. If it takes another trip to the infirmary to make you understand, that may just be what it takes. Now again.
Beatrice rushed forward again to see if her daughter had been paying attention, and if not, give her another lesson on what not to do when faced with one of the best hand-to-hand combat instructors in the former U.S. Army. Valeria took 2 steps back, blocking the first punch, then the second. Beatrice changed things up by attempting to sweep her daughter's legs, only to be surprised that instead of leaping backwards, Valeria stepped forward, inside her reach, and over her leg, leading with her fist into Beatrice's side, followed by another, and another. Beatrice brought her elbow down as hard as she could, hearing Valeria's collarbone snap under the blow, but her daughter didn't stop, using her left hand to grab her mother's wrist and twist it almost to the point of breaking, and then headbutting her under her chin, causing both of them to see stars as her mother was knocked backwards, landing on her behind. For good measure, Valeria took a step forward and kicked her mother in the side as hard as she could, feeling ribs crack. And it was Beatrice that coughed up blood this time, finally holding up her hand before Valeria could deliver another kick.
Clever girl. That's enough.
Valeria's face went from anger to concern as she knelt down next to her mother.
Ma'am, are you okay?
I think you broke my ribs, Val.
I'm so sorry, ma'am.
Never apologize. Ever. Seems I was the one who wasn't listening. That was good. Very good. Tell me what you did.
I knew I needed to get close to you, so you couldn't use your size or reach to your advantage.
But you knew I could still hurt you.
But I could hurt you more because of my size and speed. And once you were down, I needed to press my advantage because you have more reserves than I do, ma'am. So far.
Never fight fair, Val. Press every advantage you have, because the world isn't fair. No one will care if you play by the rules, only that you survived.
Yes, ma'am.
Your shoulder hurt?
It does, ma'am.
Then it's time for both of us to go to the infirmary. I'm very proud of you. You learned something special today. Once we're healed up, I have a few other tricks I'd like to teach you. And then we'll start with knives.
Thank you, ma'am. I would like that very much.
Good. All right, remember, let me do the talking. We don't need anyone getting suspicious.
Valeria helped her mother to her feet before the two of them slowly walked out of the Vault 76 gymnasium towards the infirmary. Despite the pain, Valeria felt a sense of pride, and she would always remember the lessons from that day. The walls of the vault seemed to melt, and the sound of loud machinery rose above all, before Valeria's eyes snapped open, revealing the inside of something called the Motherlode, a gigantic drill utilized by the PACT for motorized transport underneath Appalachia.
Incredible piece of technology. And incredibly dangerous.
After a meeting with the council, Valeria had been escorted back to her room, where her belongings had been returned, though the weapons had no ammunition. The director, Evelyn Hornwright, had come to see her one last time, reassuring her that she would be given transportation to close proximity to the White Spring, and afterwards they were to await her answer on their offer. To Valeria, the answer was obvious. However, she was not about to make any rash decisions before evaluating all of the information and consulting with Modus. If they were going to enter into an even greater conflict, they would need allies. Lots of allies. However, she had to get back to the White Spring first. The two other Greys, Grey 14 and 29 as they'd been referred to by the director, had led her down another long hallway in what might have passed for a train station. There were at least 8 other of the large drilling machines, or motherlodes, and she was escorted to one of them. The Hornwright Industrial logo was still emblazoned across each one, and Valeria climbed a ladder into the large machine, finding a large passenger section with her choice of seats. Her escorts hadn't said much, checking to make sure she was securely strapped in before entering the drill's control cockpit and shutting the door behind them. The sound of the drill had been nearly deafening as the machine powered up, and then it lurched out of its cradle and started crawling down along the long tunnel system in the direction of the White Spring. The rhythmic vibrations had finally lulled Valeria to sleep, where she had dreamt fitfully until being awoken by the sound of the drill biting into rock, a sign they were approaching the surface. The machine jostled to and fro, piercing the final layer of bedrock before rising out of the ground. Pylons extended from the drill, connected to the ground, providing stability until such time as they would return to the PACT. Valeria waited patiently until the cockpit door opened and Grey 14 came out. He looked at the colonel before walking over to the hatch and sliding it open. Valeria had to raise her hand to shield her eyes, as this was the first time she'd seen the sun in more days than she cared to remember. Grey 14 dropped down to the ground, while Grey 29 exited the cockpit and walked over to Valeria, unlocking her harness.
We're here.
And where is here?
A mile north of the resort. This is as close as we can get. I have no idea how your AI would react to us just popping up in the middle of the grounds.
Probably not well.
Yeah, I guess not.
And my belongings?
I'll grab your pack from storage. Why don't you, stretch your legs?
Valeria rose from her seat and strode over to the hatch. Taking a look outside, she had a vague idea of where they were, in the general direction of the White Spring. They had stopped along the top of a ridge with a cliff face on 3 sides, in a clearing with a few trees and bushes, but little else. Grey 14 was looking through a pair of binoculars, surveying the surroundings. Valeria jumped down a few feet to the ground and stretched her arms above her head. The air in Appalachia always had a bit of a funny smell to it, but after so long underground, Valeria relished every breath.
It's good to be home.
Is it? Never really saw the appeal myself.
Grey 14 put away his binoculars and turned to face the colonel. The hairs on the back of her neck stood up, even as she heard the other Grey operative jump down behind her. Grey 14's hand was far too close to his knife. Something wasn't right. Wary now, Valeria turned to find Grey 29 empty-handed. Well, almost empty. He was casually holding his own knife in his right hand at his side.
Where's my pack?
You won't be needing it.
We'll leave it here for the scavengers. Probably worth a few caps up here, right?
For fuck's sake. Why go through all the effort to show me everything and then just kill me anyway?
Just following orders. The powers that be have their reasons. All we know is that they want you dead, and they don't want you to go fast. I think their exact words were, make it hurt.
Been a while since we've done a proper killing. Can't get a good scream out of a Delta.
Valeria knew she was in mortal danger. Not only was she unarmed, but she had seen what the Greys were capable of. They were faster than her and stronger than her, but they were arrogant to a fault. If she was going to have any chance, she needed to play on that arrogance.
How big a thrill can it be, killing an unarmed woman? I thought you were Marines.
Yeah, I figured you were a talker. Well, you ain't talking your way out of this.
Nah, I get what she's saying. She thinks she has a fighting chance against us, don't you?
Frankly, not really. I've seen you move. But if I'm going to die, I'd rather do it with a weapon in my hand. You can at least give me the courtesy of that, can't you? A dead woman's last request?
It won't matter either way, because it ends with my knife in your guts, and me watching the life drain from your eyes.
Not if I can stick her first. I know plenty of places I can bleed you. Make you die real slow.
Playing on their emotions, as twisted as they were, was working. Valeria just stared, forcing her muscles to stay relaxed, waiting to see if it worked. Enough.
You know what? Fuck it. I got two anyway.
Grey 29 tossed the knife at Valeria's feet before pulling out another, identical blade from the sheath on his belt. Valeria reached down and picked up the knife from the ground. It was an updated version of the U.S. Marine Standard Combat Blade. The edge was razor-sharp with a wicked-looking tip, perfect for both stabbing and slicing. It was also balanced perfectly and felt good in Valeria's hand. The memories of her mother's lessons came flooding back. And she smiled. Using one hand, Valeria unbuttoned her tunic before dropping it to the ground, leaving her dressed in a tank top and her Enclave uniform pants. She didn't need the constricting uniform, and the fabric wouldn't have made a bit of difference anyway. Grey 29 and 14 just laughed. They both figured Valeria might put up a good show, but a few quick slices would bleed her real good, leaving her open to what they had planned after, a very slow and painful death, before they would toss her body over the ridgeline for the creatures of Appalachia to feast on.
Looks like you might know a thing or two about knives. Good.
Ain't gonna matter. I can't wait to make her scream.
Valeria took a few steps back, putting Grey 14 and Grey 29 in front of her. Fighting one of them would be difficult. Two? Well, that was practically impossible. Whatever she was going to do, it needed to be quick, and it was probably going to be painful, but she had no choice.
We'll see who does the screaming.
Of the two, Valeria could tell Grey 29 was the more dangerous. He wasn't so quick to move, more methodical. Grey 14 was eager, too eager, and he moved first, leading with his blade to try for a quick slash. Valeria had been thinking about how to handle a Grey, if it came up. The immediate problem she identified was their reaction speed. Any attack would be seen and countered. But there were two keys there, line of sight, and their arrogance. The second problem was duration. Any tactic that wasn't immediately decisive would let them adjust, to be more cautious. Grey 14 must have expected her to back away from the strike, but instead Valeria leapt forward as soon as he committed momentum, under his knife, aiming for the seam along the left side of his armor, where his body would block her from Grey 29's immediate view. Grey 14 grunted as Valeria's blade bit deep, drawing a spray of blood. Even he's brought down his own blood in the inevitable counter, perfectly aimed between two ribs in her back. But the counter had been inevitable, and not being ready for it at all would have earned a withering look from her mother. The man had extended one leg in his attack, both knees slightly bent, back leg planted firmly with his foot angled away. It was a stance that gave him stability and power, and a 14-inch gap. Valeria didn't try to catch her balance from her headlong thrust. Instead, she lifted her boots and swung between the man's legs, pulling hard on her knife in his side for additional leverage. What would have been a crippling stab from his weapon turned into more of a gashing slice through the meat of her shoulder, her angle and position changing just slightly, too quickly for Grey 14 to entirely correct for. Valeria ignored the anticipated pain and continued her swing, yanking the knife up before the arm bearing her weight would have stopped against his thigh, allowing her to pass all the way through. Immediately, she reversed the knife and caught him again in the back of the knee before he could get his eyes on her. If he'd used his speed to dodge away as soon as he lost sight of her and reassess, she'd have been finished, caught between two newly wary opponents, but he still didn't consider her a serious threat, and that cost him dearly. In the final planned move of the desperate and unlikely combination she'd invented, Valeria had pulled one boot under herself mid-slide, and now once again did not waste the momentum of her attack, spinning like a vertebrate blade, legs scything into the same one she just badly wounded to topple him. Even as her free hand scraped along the dry ground to scoop up a handful of sandy dirt, in that moment her spin hid that hand from Grey 29 behind her own body. She knew the timing was critical here. If she threw too soon, he would easily dodge or block, but she hadn't fully internalized the Grey's insane speed, and he was nearly on her even as her spin brought him back into her view. He brought his knife up in a low underhand thrust towards Valeria's remaining organic eye. Grey 14, even wounded and off balance as he was, also recovered more quickly than Valeria expected, and in the motion of his fall, jabbed his blade into her back, slicing through the shirt and adding more of her own blood to the ground around them. It was a reflexive jerk from the pain, an unplanned motion, that saved her, shifting her position just enough that the tip of Grey 29's blade skidded across the edge of her eye socket and forehead instead of penetrating. She'd still underestimated them and gotten very lucky, but now her combat instincts were dialed in, and visualizing the relative positions of the two Greys and herself, she saw another slim chance. Again, Valeria did the unexpected, hooked her knife into the armor of Grey 29's knife arm and pulled in a way that dug his knife in a deeper slice along the side of her head, leaving her free hand unobserved until it was already releasing the handful of sand and dirt into his eyes at point-blank range. He tensed his knife arm against an anticipated move to push the weapon away, so only added his own strength to hers as the knife finished its long gash across her skull and ear to plunge into Grey 14's nose, just past her shoulder, bringing a gout of blood and a short cry of surprise as he toppled backwards. Grey 29, for his part, did not try to claw the debris from his eyes, counting on his own situational awareness and proximity to make that a secondary concern. Instead, he punched Valeria in the face with his left hand while slashing at her with his knife, tearing another strip from her shirt and leaving her torso bloody. The blows were not as devastating as they might have been with perfect aim, but they still took a toll.
Can't stop. Don't stop.
Valeria threw herself at Grey 29, staying inside his reach, almost feral and unpredictable, stabbing again and again with her knife, inflicting shallow wounds, but a great many of them. The man's arrogance as leaving his vision impaired now proved critical. Unable to anticipate Valeria's frantic movements enough for their telling blow or proper defense, though he still grunted and slashed across her back repeatedly. The part of Valeria's mind that was paying attention to the sounds of Grey 14's movement behind her suddenly screamed for action, and in a reflexive motion that caught the blinded Grey 29 off guard, she shoved him into the dirt and spun to face the other operative, his visage a bloody, snarling nightmare. He charged at her, even with his injured knee, moving at a speed which would have taken her by surprise if she hadn't finally been properly anticipating it. Instead, she fell backwards, and again made a sacrifice play, reaching out to pull him closer. This let him sink his knife even more deeply into her body, but it let her partially control where it hit, and short on options in that split second, she settled for an eventual fatal wound, but not an immediately crippling one. Not having understood his companion's mistake, that Valeria was playing speed chess, desperately throwing away pieces left and right just for a narrow path towards checkmate, Grey 14 was off balance from surprise, and as Valeria kicked at his already injured knee as hard as she could, they both fell together. Valeria screamed in agony as he pulled his knife out of her side to stab again, but agony changed to exertion as she was already bringing her own knife up and into his neck, severing the carotid artery and puncturing the windpipe for good measure. She rolled, pushing him off of her as he tried to stem the gush of blood. He opened his mouth to curse at her, but was rewarded with only another gout of blood as his mouth opened and closed, no sound produced by his ruined vocal cords. Barely upright, but on her feet, blood dripping from her knife and the wound in her side, her free hand clamped over it, Valeria stalked towards Grey 29, though in truth there was equally as much stagger to her gait. The gravely wounded operative now firmly considered Valeria a threat, and was awkwardly trying to draw his sidearm with his offhand, but the blood he'd lost, and the damage Valeria's frantic attacks had done, was making this take far, far too long. She threw her own knife overhand, pinning the man's hand to his own armor. Valeria stumbled the last few steps over, knelt down, and grabbed the operative by the hair, yanking his head back.
Thank you for the refresher.
In a single motion, she pulled her blade out of the flesh of his hand, up across Grey 29's neck, slicing deeply enough that the knife scraped his spine, before letting his head drop into the pool of blood collecting around the deep wound. The entire fight had lasted exactly 42 seconds. They had underestimated her, and she had made them pay, but had paid a heavy price herself.
Need to find their medkit.
Dropping the knife to the ground, Valeria put her hand back on the worst wound in her side, staggering back towards the mother lode. Gritting her teeth as she ascended the ladder into the large drill at a cost of losing more blood, she could hear the radio.
Grey 29, this is command. You're behind schedule. Report.
Valeria ignored the call and found the medical supplies, slumping back into one of the chairs, and injected herself with a stim pack. Her head wound wasn't inherently life-threatening, but it was bleeding so copiously as to make it increasingly hard to see, which amounted to the same thing. She removed her undershirt and used the latter to wipe her eyes, then wrapped it around her head to stem the bleeding there so she could assess the rest of the damage. The stim pack would keep her going for a bit, but she sorely needed major medical attention.
No time for that, unfortunately.
Instead, she recognized a medical cauterizer at the bottom of the medkit and took it into her hand, flipping the switch. The U-shaped blade immediately heated up to a bright red, and Valeria gritted her teeth as she placed it against the wound in her side. Valeria held it there for the few seconds necessary to cauterize the flesh, but it nearly caused her to pass out from the pain. It was going to leave one hell of a scar, but she would no longer die of blood loss. Not from that one, at least. The majority of the rest were on her back, and she couldn't see them well enough to assess, so she just have to be sure. Valeria arched her back and reached awkwardly behind herself with the cauterizer. She stopped screaming after the third application, and did pass out after the fifth, but only for a few moments. Once she was satisfied her condition wouldn't worsen, Valeria did her best to dress the rest of her wounds. Catching sight of her face in the reflective metal surface inside the drill, she could see a large bruise forming on her cheekbone where she had been punched, in addition to the new gash away from her left eye, parallel to the old scar. Even considering the blood, she was reminded of her days sparring against her mother, and it had been those lessons, as painful as they had been, which had saved her.
And thank you, ma'am.
Slowly pulling herself back together, Valeria redressed herself, replacing her repurposed undershirt with a camouflage poncho she found in the pilot's compartment, along with a combat helmet. The radio continued to squawk beside her.
Grade 29, report. Is the Colonel dead? I'm sending Grade 22 and 27 to rendezvous with you. Report.
Not dead by a long shot, but my welcome here is definitely worn out. Need something.
Valeria went through the two compartments in the motherlode and found a storage case in the back containing what appeared to be a large battery with a slightly purple glow. It wasn't a fusion core, but she figured it had to be something similar, and she'd also found plasma grenades.
All kinds of lessons paying off today. Hey, Lil.
It wasn't elegant by any stretch of the imagination, but her own little surprise was functional, and would have made Lilith proud. Gathering what other supplies she could, along with an assault rifle, pistol, and ammunition, Valeria started walking west in the direction of the White Spring. About 20 minutes later, as she spotted the top of the old White Spring Hotel, there was a surprisingly large explosion behind her. Turning, Valeria saw a small mushroom cloud rising from the hills, followed by the deep thump of the ground waves from the massive detonation of her improvised explosive.
You come for the Queen? You'd better come hard enough she can't come back at you. And I will. Whatever it takes, I will burn your rot out of the world.
Turning again, Valeria began to put one boot in front of the other, her mind focused on a new mission. But first, she needed to get home. Unfortunately, her welcome was going to be an unexpected one.
Berkeley Springs. I remember this place. Back when I was heading north. Wasn't much to look at then, and a hell of a lot less to look at now.
Super mutants. Must have been some kind of settling here or something that got their attention.
Damn. Seems there ain't anywhere in Appalachia safe from those damn mutants.
Could be Antlers.
What'd she say?
Vault Town. Big settlement on the other side of the mountains. Never been myself, but Antlers here took some really good pictures of it last year. Probably as close to a real town as you'll find in Appalachia. Well, besides the resort.
A resort?
Big fancy hotel before the war, called the White Spring.
Sounds nice.
No, not so much. It's full of soldiers and God knows what else. Got a real funny feeling about that place. But Antlers and I stay as far away as we can. Antlers heard a lot of stories, from settler friends of ours mostly. Someone we knew from Vault 76 supposedly runs the place. Valeria something. Didn't really know her well. She and her folks kept to themselves. Now she's got this silver eye and runs around with a monster.
A monster?
That's what people call her, but real name is Lilith. Really bad news. Makes a super mutant look tame. Heard she eats people. Like, seriously. A lot of people.
Cherry, darling, Sounds like spooky stories to me.
If even half of them are true, that's why we keep well clear.
Well, what about this vault town?
Like I said, it's big. Fortified, too. If anyone could stand against the mutants, we figured it'd be them. Antlers has been bugging me to head there, so I'd be safe. But I don't have any plans on leaving her. Or you, for that matter. At least until we figure out what's going on.
Figure Antlers would be looking out for you. And I can't say I don't agree with her.
Oh no, not you two. I know more about the wildlife in Appalachia than anyone, and I can more than hold my own in a fight. And who else is gonna cook for you two?
Even I understood that, Antlers. And Cherry Darling is one damn fine cook. But once we get to Sugar Grove, I would feel a lot better if both you and Antlers found someplace safe from the super mutants and the folks chasing her.
Sugar Grove or bust, that was the deal. After that, we can talk. Now, I'm gonna go have a word with that vendor bot down at the station, see if he's got anything we need. And I gotta keep a cap spur in a hole in my pocket anyway.
Want me to come with, darling?
Nah, it's just down the road, and the super mutants look to have gotten rid of everything else dangerous around. I can hold my own, remember?
You remember you almost got us killed by those cultists, right?
I told you it'd all work out, and it did. Not funny, Antlers. And I'll be just fine. If it makes you feel any better, I'll take another gun, okay?
Don't be gone too long. Oh, and if they got any bourbon, or whiskey, or shine, or whatever.
Booze. Yep, I got it. Yes, Antlers. And I'll ask if they have any film or wood oil for your antlers. Oh, that actually might not be a bad idea for you too, Red.
And I thought just brushing out my hair was a chore. These extras ain't all what they're cracked up to be sometimes.
You'll get the hang of it. Well, time's a-wasting. Here, hand me my pistol.
If you get into any trouble at all, you shoot first and ask questions later, right, darling? And Antlers and I will come running.
Yes, ma'am.
That Cherry is something else, ain't she? Yeah, I know we both owe her. Oh, you too. I may be different, but I ain't dead because of both of you. Could you get me another bowl of that stew? I'm famished.
Well, I'll be damned, she's real.
Come on, boss, let me see.
Hold your damn horses and quiet down. Here, take a look.
Holy Toledo. Is that antlers? Like, for real?
Don't know who else it'd be. Though, thought she'd be alone. Not sure who the other two are.
No idea either. Don't look too dangerous, though. Nothing we can't handle.
Don't get cocky, Violet. I've heard enough stories and seen too many arrogant assholes get their asses handed to them. No, we're gonna play this smart.
Hey! Someone is leaving!
Shit! And quiet! You want everyone in Appalachia to hear you? It's not Antlers, is it?
Nah, it's one of the others. Looks like she's heading down to the vendor. Want we should take her out?
No.
Then we take Antlers now?
No!
What the hell, boss? We just gonna sit here with our thumbs up our ass?
Will you just shut up? I'm not the boss for nothing, you know. And he doesn't want Antlers hurt, and I don't plan on disappointing him. Not with how much we're getting paid. Listen up. I got a plan. Here's what I want you to do.
Hi, everyone. I'm Chris.
And I'm not.
We're not doing that routine right now. We're trying to do an advertisement.
Oh, fine. I'm Sir Aloysius Pernicious, the better half of the team at One Wall Comedy.
Okay, I wouldn't go that far. Anyway, come check us out on YouTube. We're your #1 source for independent sketch comedy on the internet. Yeah, 'cause that's such a big market. All right, come on. Let's get out of here. I'm getting paid for this, right? Don't push your luck.
U.S. government cannot be trusted. Live free or die.
Ain't that the truth, Wallace? Good to see you again.
Take your survival into your own hands.
That's the plan. So I'm looking to buy a few things.
All of our goods are tax-free.
As always. So representing the old Free States, Wallace?
You're in Free States territory now. No government interference allowed.
Never change, Wallace. Never change. So, I got a list of things.
We pride ourselves in carrying only the best implements of freedom.
Alright. Well, camera film, as much as you have. Wood oil. And that's for rubbing, not gasoline, okay? The last time was a horrible, horrible mistake. And, alcohol.
For boozing or killing.
Killing?
Molotov cocktails are an expression of righteous freedom.
Then I guess boozing.
We pride ourselves on the widest selection of freedom-loving alcohol in all of Appalachia.
Great. I'll take whatever you have.
We will be right back with your merchandise.
No idea what those Free Staters are thinking. They sound like my kind of people. Oh crap. What now?
Cherry pulled her pistol and ran to the door of the train station. There were more gunshots, and the sound of a woman yelling. Peeking around the corner, Cherry could see the flashes of gunfire, and saw someone running in her direction.
Damn. Just what we needed. Uninvited company.
Pointing her pistol out into the night, Cherry caught sight of the woman dodging from tree to tree, as other folks were shooting at her. Never one to let a person in need go unassisted, Cherry fired at the muzzle flashes, then tried to get the woman's attention.
Over here! Come on! The train station!
The woman ducked as a barrage of bullets shoot up the tree she was hiding behind, before looking over at Cherry with a terrified look on her face.
I'll cover you, come on!
Terrified, the woman flinched as more bullets hit the tree, but managed a quick nod as Cherry emptied her pistol into the tree line, quickly reloading and firing again. The woman worked up her courage and sprinted away from her hiding place, bullets ricocheting off the dirt around her.
Get in the station! As quick as you can!
The woman darted past Cherry into the station, even as whoever had been shooting at her began firing at the station itself.
Please, please, don't let them get me!
Don't worry, the cavalry should be here any minute.
And Cherry wasn't worried. Both Red and Antlers would have heard the shooting and were already on their way. All she had to do was keep her head and keep shooting.
And there it is. It sounds like old Percy to me.
Old Percy?
I'll explain later. Keep your head down.
Cherry stuck her gun around the doorframe and fired again, even as she heard footsteps on the roof above, followed by more gunfire.
Shit! Get the hell out of here!
There were a few more distant gunshots, but soon the silence returned to the area, gunfire replaced with the sound of insects and the wind. Cherry stepped out of the door, keeping her pistol at the ready, when Red dropped from the rooftop, slapping a fresh magazine into her family's old rifle.
Just what the hell did you get yourself into, Cherry darling? I told you it wasn't safe, didn't I?
I swear, it wasn't me. It was her.
Red looked into the old train station and saw the young woman huddled behind one of the benches, peeking out between the cracks in the wood. Red quickly pulled the hood back over her head, before the woman got a good look at her, and then stepped inside.
Well, all right. No idea we had a visitor. And it's okay. The bad guys are hightailing it down the hill. Don't think they'll be back.
Are you sure? They killed my ma and pa and wanted me. I wasn't gonna let them.
It's okay. You're safe now. Cherry, stay with her. I'm gonna make sure they're gone.
Red crouched and went out of the door before vanishing into the trees. Turning around, Cherry walked over and leaned down, putting her arm around the scared woman.
It's okay. You're safe now. Those bad men won't hurt you.
But there are so many of them, and only 2 of you.
3 of us, actually. And trust me, that's more than enough to deal with a few, raiders, I guess?
Yeah, I think they were raiders.
Where are my manners? Come on, take a seat. I'm Cherry, by the way. And my friend over there? Well, she's Red. And our other friend? That's a longer story.
I'm Violet, and thank you kindly for saving me. Thought I was a goner for sure. First it was the super mutants running us out of our homes, then those damn raiders coming and trying to take what was left.
And they killed your family?
Pa tried to stop them when they grabbed me, but they shot him. Shot my ma too for good measure. I just ran and ran as fast as I could until I got here.
You think federal regulations keep you safe, but all it does is cede power to bureaucrats.
Oh, damn. I almost forgot about Wallace. Are those our supplies?
Your order. All tax-free.
Fine and dandy. Just put the box over there. And here are your caps.
A pleasure doing business with you. Always remember, don't tread on me. And live free or die.
Looks like we scared the hell out of whoever that was. They all skedaddled back wherever they came from.
Thank God. Thought we were gonna have a big fight on our hands. Where's Antlers?
Antlers?
Our other friend. Like I said, long story.
I told her to stay at the camp, but knowing her, I bet you she's up in the trees taking pictures.
If those raiders are gone, let's get back to camp and make sure Miss Violet here is okay.
Really, I don't want to be a bother. Y'all already saved me from those bastards.
Darling, don't you worry none at all. Our camp ain't too far and we'll get you somewhere safe, okay?
You're too kind. Ain't many folks in Appalachia who'd give 2 craps about a girl like me.
Lucky for you, we're not most folks. In fact, I'd say we're rather unique.
That's one word for it, darling.
Hush now, Red. All right, Violet, can you walk?
I think so. Still a little shaky, though.
Just take it slow. Red, you didn't eat all the stew, did you?
No, and you better not be insinuating anything neither.
Remember, I'm the one that sews your clothes, Red.
Ouch! That done hurt my feelings there, darling. There's plenty left to eat. And with this here booze, we'll be just fine.
All right, then. Violet, just follow us. You can eat something, drink something, and we've even got an extra bedroll. We are heading south in the morning, and as long as you're with us, you've got nothing to worry about.
Antlers will be happy to have someone else to take pictures of, too.
This Antlers, kind of a strange name.
She's harmless, really. Just try not to stare when you meet her.
Stare?
Oh, you'll definitely figure it out. Now come on, time's a-wasting, and this bottle of whiskey has Old Red's name all over it.
Red grabbed one of the boxes of provisions, while Cherry took the other. The 3 women walked out of the old Berkeley Springs Railroad Station and up the road towards their camp, leaving Vanderbilt Wallace to recheck his inventory and continue to rail against the long-dead government.
God damn it, Cyrus. Getting shot wasn't part of the fucking plan.
You'll live. Here. Just use the stim pack and bandage it up. We had to sell it, otherwise those girls would have known it was a trick.
And, why didn't we just bum rush them? Seems a hell of a lot easier to me, right?
Stupid assholes, you're supposed to be hunters. Better to let the prey come to us instead of going down there and getting ourselves killed.
Alright. So what's the plan now, boss?
Val knows what she's doing. Sweet as pie when she wants to be. Figure they bought her out hook, line, and sinker. Tomorrow, when they head south, she's gonna lead them straight to us, and then we bag ourselves an Antlers.
And, what about the other 2?
Vinny only paid for Antlers. The others? Those are ours. Think of it as a little bonus so we don't kill them unless we have to. Got it?
Works for us, boss. We'll make sure they're in one piece. At least for a while. Right, boys?
You want a party? You put in the work. So stop your grinning, grab your linen. We need to haul ass to the ambush site. And don't forget those Yaogwai guts neither.
Ah, shit. Do we have to?
Like I said, they could smell us a mile away unless we cover our smell. I swear to God, you guys are a bunch of pussies.
Cyrus berated his crew until they packed up their weapons and the bags of mutated bear guts and disappeared down the hill to the south, careful to cover their tracks.
This is getting us nowhere.
Problem, Knight?
These kid glove interrogation techniques are pointless, Paladin.
It's called asking questions, Knight.
And their answers are entirely unsatisfactory. I recommend we use more traditional methods to extract information from them.
Just because you don't like their answers doesn't make them wrong.
Remember your place, scribe.
And you remember yours, Knight. I'm in command here, and I won't have you torturing people without reason.
I'd say we have a damn good reason, Paladin.
What about Monongah? Is there any way we can verify their story?
Against my better judgment, I allowed Knight Shin to send a scouting team to the mine, or what was left of it.
The entire complex collapsed in on itself.
Doesn't that corroborate at least part of what they've told us?
All a very convenient turn of events, which coincidentally prevents us from validating the rest of their tall tale. I agree with the Overseer. They are obviously lying to cover up something bigger.
Knight, I do believe we should change our tactics.
About time.
I'm going to let Scribe Valdez speak with them.
What? This is preposterous!
Enough, Shin. That's an order. We've tried it your way, so there is no harm in letting the scribe have a turn.
Fine. But I'm raising an official objection.
Duly noted. You are free to complain to the elders when we regain contact with Lost Hills.
Knight Shin scowled and stormed off. Paladin Romani rubbed her temple, then turned to the scribe.
Daniel is under a lot of stress. However, I cannot allow this insubordination to jeopardize our mission.
Are you sure you want me to speak with the prisoners?
I am loath to call them that, Scribe. We didn't come to Appalachia to start a war. At least, not one against fellow citizens. I know, the Overseer has been very convincing that the White Spring does represent a true threat. But I refuse to stoop to the level of savages attempting to gain information.
As a scribe, I've always been taught to look before leaping and never jump to conclusions.
It's your ability to keep an open mind that I am counting on. Perhaps these new Enclave people are telling the truth, or Shin might be right. However, I'd like you to get to the bottom of it. A little kindness can go a long way.
I understand, Paladin. I'll do my best.
Of course. I look forward to your full report. Before you begin, do you have any more information on the ultrasite battery and where it may have come from?
A more thorough investigation of the basement uncovered a few more clues. Several scraps of technical documentation, though most of it was in Chinese.
Chinese?
I'm working on a translation, but my Mandarin is a bit rusty. I might know someone who can help, but she's not with the Brotherhood.
An outsider?
A friend. We met recently, and I found her to be an exceptionally talented individual.
That is high praise coming from you, Scribe. And who is this mystery woman?
Her name is Elizabeth Kirby. She's a former resident of Vault 76.
Interesting. Well, I have faith in your assessment, Scribe. As long as she can work on the translations on site, then I approve.
Thank you, Paladin. I'll get a message to her immediately.
Good. Now, once again, I look forward to your report.
Paladin Romani left the scribe and returned to her office, passing Brotherhood knights and new initiates who continued their work to turn Fort Atlas into a fully functional military compound. Scribe Valdez watched the work before turning her mind back to their prisoners. From all reports, they were researchers as well, calling themselves Team Cryptid, and dedicated to investigating the strange creatures of Appalachia. The story they told of what had occurred in the Monongah mine beggared belief. However, the scribe herself had seen much crossing the wasteland from California, and the region itself was proving to be an even bigger mystery. Not that Appalachia was all bad. Meeting Miss Kirby had been fortuitous, not only because she was able to provide additional information about the region, but Valdez was also beginning to very much enjoy her company. The scribe's thoughts were interrupted by a tap on her shoulder.
Scribe Valdez?
Oh, Day. You startled me.
Sorry, Scribe. I don't mean to pry, but did I hear that you're speaking to the people we picked up at Monongah?
Our prisoners? Yes. The Paladin thought they might react more positively to my questions, as opposed to Knight Shin's.
Oh, I can't imagine why she might think that.
Knight Shin is, well, a bit intense.
So I've noticed.
Why do you ask?
I'd like to join you, if you'd allow me. I have some questions of my own I'd like to ask them.
I don't know. The Paladin might object.
Come on. I promise not to get in your way. I just want to talk to her.
And what about the Overseer?
She's done asking questions. I'm not.
Okay, Day. But I'm in charge, and if I deem the questions to be irrelevant or unnecessary, I will ask you to leave.
Right message received. It's a deal, Scribe.
Day held out his hand, and Valdez took it. Although neither knew it of the other, they both harbored deep reservations as to the course that the Overseer had begun to chart, and by what she was telling both to Paladin Romani and Knight Shin.
All right. Follow me.
Valdez led the way, taking them down into the basement. The observatory didn't have what could be called a proper holding area, but Knight Shin had his knights repurpose one of the old storerooms into a makeshift brig. The knight standing outside of the door saluted when Valdez approached, but gave Day a suspicious look.
I'm here to question the prisoners.
The order specified you'd be alone.
Our guest will be assisting me.
The knight eyed Day, then turned his attention back to the scribe.
All right, but I'll be right here just in case.
Thank you. As you were, Knight.
The knight saluted again, then opened the door, allowing Scribe Valdez and Day into the makeshift jail. There were several cots along one wall, along with tables and chairs and even access to toilets. The survivors of Team Cryptid were gathered around one of the tables, and they all turned their attention to their visitors.
Great! More goons!
Barnes, pipe down.
Good afternoon.
Hard to tell being stuck down here in the basement.
I'm sorry all of this has been necessary, but as you're aware, we're newcomers to Appalachia and conditions are not what we expected. I suspect you would have done the same if you were us.
I'd expect some common decency. We lost a lot of our people, our friends, in that mine. Holding us here isn't protecting Appalachia. We need to get back to the White Spring and let them know what's going on, so we can do something about it.
Captain Skinner, right?
That's right. And who are you exactly? We've been given the 3rd degree by that Shin fella. Don't appreciate his attitude.
I am Scribe Odessa Valdez. Think of me as a scientist and a field researcher.
I would say it's nice to meet you, Miss Valdez, but I believe that remains to be seen. And your friend, well, I've seen him with the Overseer.
I'm Day.
What kind of name is that?
Just a name. And yes, I am with the Overseer, but I've seen things.
We both have questions. I've read the transcripts of your conversations with the Knight Shin.
I wouldn't call those conversations. I felt downright threatened.
I am not Knight Shin. Neither is Day here. I want to hear your story, and if you have any other evidence to back up your claims of what happened in Monongah Mine.
All right, Scribe. If it means there might be a chance of us getting out of here, me and the team would be happy to tell you the whole story. Again. And I'm going to take a chance on you.
What do you mean?
Well, given his attitude, we weren't entirely forthcoming with Shin.
You lied.
Let's just say we didn't tell him or show him everything.
Is this a good idea, Skinner?
Well, the scribe here hasn't threatened to torture us yet, and I suspect she won't. And Day, well, I've heard of you. You may not like us, but I suspect you have as many questions as we do as to what's going on, because I can tell you the White Spring didn't do this.
I believe you.
Well, then maybe you can talk some sense into these folks, and the Overseer.
Day just looked down.
So, what do you have to show me?
Douglas?
Private Douglas went over to his pack. Their belongings had been thoroughly searched by the Brotherhood Knights when they had been taken prisoner. But true to his love of the Unstoppables, Douglas had sewn a secret compartment on the inside, where the contents had been hidden. He reached in and pulled out a small stack of papers, placing them in front of Scribe Valdez.
We recovered these before the mine collapsed. They're in Chinese, but include reports of what research was being done down there, and by whom.
Chinese? Isn't that interesting?
Have you ever heard of an organization called the PACT, Scribe Valdez?
I have not.
You, Day?
Doesn't ring a bell, no.
Then we have an even bigger mystery on our hands. My team has been from one side of Appalachia to the other over the past 3 years, and we found all kinds of things. Creatures, artifacts, and just plain strange occurrences that don't make any sense.
The wasteland is full of the strange and unusual, Captain.
But now we've found evidence that something, or more appropriately, someone, is behind at least part of what's going on.
All right, Captain. We're listening. Right, Scribe?
That is correct. Well, Captain, the floor is yours. Convince us.
Captain Skinner looked at his team and nodded before pointing to Private Douglas.
Scribe Valdez, it all started about a year ago, when Emily and I discovered these strange seismic readings in the Monongah area.
As the strange tale unfolded, both Day and the Scribe Valdez took a seat, with the scribe busily taking notes while glancing down at the stack of technical documents. The more she heard, the more she believed these survivors were telling the truth, and the more concerned she got. She needed to put these documents, along with the technical scraps she'd found below, in front of Elizabeth. Valdez suspected it was all connected, and while she was desperately in need of answers, part of her was deathly afraid of what they were going to find. As for Day, he was also convinced they were telling the truth. He had questions of his own to ask, and hoped the answers might help him convince the Overseer she was wrong. Otherwise, they might all be hurtling towards disaster.
Hi, I'm Fire Rider, and I'm the host of The Pixel People, a podcast dedicated to taking a close look at our favorite characters from our favorite video games. From major characters who define the course of a game's storyline to smaller characters who you might have never noticed. Every week, we go beyond the quest line to examine a particular character's story arc and choices, and discover the real-world parallels and life lessons hidden just below the surface. I hope you'll join us. You can find the Pixel People on Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and everywhere else you listen to podcasts.
The settlers and refugees of Foundation had slowly settled into a new normal, living on an island of stability in the midst of the supermutants who occupied most of the Savage Divide. As the immediate danger had receded, attention had turned to feeding the expanded population, while preparing the defenses of the settlement should the supermutants decide to return. Besides a few couriers who managed to brave the mutants roaming the hills, Foundation had little to no communication with the rest of Appalachia. As far as they could tell, the news from the region was uniformly bad. Even the White Spring had closed its gate and settled into an unusual silence, while the Blue Ridge Caravan was charging exorbitant rates to escort other refugees out of the region to the south. There were also rumors of some new faction in the north, calling themselves the Brotherhood of Steel, but everyone figured it was just wishful thinking, given the new threats. The original Brotherhood died defending Fort Defiance, the old Allegheny Asylum, against the Scorched years ago. Through it all, it was Amanda, the ex-raider, who worked tirelessly to protect the settlement. She inspired hope, and a bit of fear when necessary. But even she had to admit, she kinda liked being in charge. However, she couldn't help that she was still worried, very worried, about someone she cared for very much, and who was currently long overdue.
Any word?
Nothing since the last time you asked. No signal, no nothing.
Damn it! What the hell has taken her so long?
We have to consider the possibility that...
Nope. Don't you fucking say it.
Sorry, I'll keep my ear to the ground.
You do that, and I'm gonna go check on Ward.
That old buzzard up and about finally?
Once he started bitching about those damn osmosis kits again, I kicked his ass out of bed and put him to work. Grouchy as hell, as usual.
Of course he was.
Amanda walked out of the communications tent. There was precious little to communicate with, though they were able to talk to their scout teams, who kept a watchful eye on the super mutant patrols. However, it was another signal she was waiting for, the homing beacon she'd given to Jones and Cindy.
Damn it, Cindy. Where the hell are you?
The two of them had disappeared into the tunnel beneath Spruce Knob to find the source of the large drill and the super mutants which had attacked them. They were supposed to activate the beacon the moment they found anything, or beat feet back to Foundation as quickly as they could. Unfortunately, they had done neither.
Okay, which one of you stole the bone saws?
Ward, Jesus, give it a rest, would ya? We got bigger problems than bone saws right now.
Amanda, if you let them get away with the little stuff, the next thing you know, they'll be carting off turrets.
Glad to see you're back to your old self.
Fine. But I swear, I'll figure out who's stealing our stuff. By the way, any word from Cindy or Jones?
No.
She's a smart girl. I'm sure she's okay.
She better be.
And nothing from Paige or the others?
Nothing at all.
Damn. Well, we just can't stay hunkered down. It's only a matter of time before those super mutants come back. And I can't believe I'm saying this, but I think we need to hit back.
Guess you can take Ward out of the Raiders, but you can't take the Raider out of Ward, huh?
Speak for yourself there, Amanda. Long and short of it, people are itching for a bit of payback. And I figure there are other folks in Appalachia that aren't just rolling over either.
I'm all for a fight, but it'd be a hell of a lot easier if we could communicate with folks and coordinate for real.
I think I might just have a solution for that.
Eugenie! Holy shit, you're back!
The ghoul trader, wearing her traditional caravan garb, walked up to Ward and Amanda, followed by another ghoul woman dressed in an old long coat and wearing a wide-brimmed hat, rifle slung over her shoulder.
Amanda told me you headed off to bring back help.
I did, and I did. Wasn't easy, but I finally managed to convince my friend here that we really needed her help.
The other ghoul looked around nervously before stepping up next to Eugenie.
Amanda? Ward? I'd like you to meet a former resident of Appalachia and good friend of mine, Abigail Singh.
Well, Abigail.
Just call me Abby.
Okay, Abby. Thanks for coming all this way. I'm sure Eugenie told you all about our problems, right?
No communications. Like, at all. Well, I think I have a solution for that.
Well, don't keep us in suspense.
The Scorch detection system.
The what now?
Something I built before I left Appalachia. It was supposed to help us fight the Scorched, but it was too late. However, the system should still be intact, and here's the kicker. I can reprogram it to serve as a communication system.
But wouldn't that get jammed as well?
That's the best part. It uses a carrier signal at the far edges of the normal range. And they're multiplexed. I had to design it that way to pick up the Scorched. It's pretty much indistinguishable from random static, if you don't know what to look for. Way outside the normal range. It's untraceable otherwise.
Old Abby here is nothing short of a genius. You should see the stuff she's built for us back at the compound.
I don't know about that. But once I get the system online and reprogrammed, we'll be able to communicate with anyone who has the frequencies and adds a little side circuit to their radio frequency.
This is the best news I've heard all year.
Don't get too excited just yet. There is one piece missing. In fact, it's the piece that kept me from finishing the system in the first place.
You gotta be kidding me. Okay, what do you need?
An uplink transmitter. Last anyone saw it, it was with a responder named Madigan. He was supposed to install it at top of the world. No idea if he ever made it.
It ain't all bad news. Turns out, when Abby here described this uplink, it jogged the old ghoul memory.
And?
I swear, I saw this thing the last time I did a trade with Rose.
That crazy-ass raider bot?
One and the same. And that Madigan fella? I think Rose was using his corpse as a trophy or something. Of course, didn't ask, because that bot is crazy as the day is long.
So, if Rose still has the uplink, all we have to do is get her to install it. Then I can activate the whole system from my old bunker in the mire.
Let me get this straight. We have to walk across the Savage Divide, through super mutant country, to top of the world, and hope that a crazy-ass raider bot still has the one piece of tech we need to activate your old scorch detection thingamajig, and then use it as a high-tech radio.
That about sums it up. Oh, and I have to get to my bunker, too.
Well, not the worst plan I've ever heard.
Oh, I've definitely heard worse.
It's settled then. Now, Abby and I would love a place to kick up our heels and rest a bit before we go hiking all over Appalachia again.
Not much free space, but hell, you two can take my cabin. I've been down for too long anyway.
Much obliged there, Ward. You know, Appalachia and I didn't part on the best of terms. But now that I'm back, well, maybe it ain't so bad.
You two get some rest. We'll head out in the morning.
What do you mean, we?
Ward, I'm putting you back in charge. I know the Divide a hell of a lot better than you, and I know Rose. If we want to pull this off, it's gotta be me.
Downright noble. We'll make a settler out of you yet, Amanda.
You best take that back, Ward.
If y'all could still crack jokes at a time like this, then maybe we still got a chance. Hey, Ward, can you show Abby to your cabin? I'll be along shortly.
Ward beckoned for Abby to follow him, and the two walked away, leaving Eugenie with Amanda.
I gotta ask, any news from Val?
I'm sorry, Eugenie. We haven't heard anything. Last news from the White Spring was everything was shut up tight. They ain't letting anyone in or anyone out.
She's got to be out there somewhere. She ain't dead. I know she ain't.
The way Cindy talked about her? I'd say it'd take a hell of a lot more than an old super mutant to punch her ticket.
I hope so. I lost so much already. I can't lose her.
Seems like we're all missing someone, and all we got is hope. So you hold on to it, whatever happens.
Amanda! We got a signal!
A signal?
Be right there! Come on, Eugenie. You bring all that hope with you too, okay? Please tell me you've got some good news.
It's the beacon, all right. Plus Morse code.
A message? What's it say?
I'm a little rusty, but give me a second. Whoa. Okay, I think I got it.
Come on, then. What's it saying?
Cindy and Jones. Safe and coming home. Beacon activated. Bringing friends. ETA, 1 hour.
Friends?
That's it. The message just repeats.
I'll be damned. And I'll take all the friends I can get. Tell Ward to get a team downstairs and start clearing that tunnel entrance. And bring the heavy guns. Can't be too careful. Just in case.
Sure thing, Amanda.
Expect she's gonna have a hell of a story to tell. Well, Eugenie, looks like it's gonna be a busy couple days.
Well, Amanda hurried to prepare for the arrival of their wayward scout team and figure out just who these friends of theirs might be. Eugenie walked out to the courtyard and looked back up to the mountains around them.
I know you're out there, Val. One way or the other, I'm gonna find you and hold you so tight. that I never lose you again.
Thank you again, members, for joining us here on The Modus Files. If you've enjoyed this content, please subscribe, and better yet, please leave a review to help others find our little enclave. You can also follow us on our various social media accounts, including Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, @ModusFiles or @ModusFiles Podcast, for more information about our story, Fallout 76 content, and random musings on the Enclave. We also just added a Patreon. If you'd like to support our work and receive special benefits, like early access to episodes, original scripts, and special events with our cast. A link to our Patreon can be found at modusfiles.com. I'd also like to thank our cast, Pandora Beatrix as Colonel Valeria Faustina and Young Valeria, and now official editor of our podcast, Lucy Middleton as Lilith Alistair and Amanda, Mandy Marie B. as Beatrice Faustina and Abigail Singh, Chris Smith from One Wall Comedy as Sergeant Blaine, the Super Mutants, Graham, Private Barnes, and Wallace the Free State's Vendorbot, Chrissy Williams as Trader Red and Researcher Emily, Jessica Starr as Sophia Daguerre and PACT Communications, Ryan Negrin as Day, Firewriter as Eugenie, Kirsty Harrison as Evelyn Hornwright and Paladin Romani, Vitriol Plays as Scribe Odessa, Dr. Mark Harsworth as Ward from Foundation, Josh Smith as Captain Skinner, Aaron McNamara as Dr. Naomi Harefield, Cherry Pixel as Cherry, DJ Reed as Captain Thomas and Grey 14, Phobos as the Brotherhood Knight, Eric Gold as Private Douglas and Grey Commander, Ray O'Hare as Grey 29, Aaron Atherton as Raider Number 1, Fives as Raider Number 2, Steve Lundberg as Raider Boss Cyrus, Amanda Lee as Violet, and Brad Williams as the voice of Modus. As our third season continues, we want to thank our extended cast, crew, and all of the other creators who have helped support the community for the past several years. Without all of you, this wouldn't have been possible. And a very special thank you to Nobody, our very first commissioned artist, who is working on updated portraits of our main cast. Stay tuned for our next episode, Bad Day at Blackrock. Lastly, thank you to all of our subscribers and supporters. God bless the Enclave, and God bless America.
Members, we look forward to your next visit to our little enclave.